Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Adi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Adi Gopi Janam Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Brajacanaranjana Yashodanandana Brajacanaranjana Jamanatira Vanachadi Yamuna Tira Vanachadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Adi Kunjabi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Adi Madhava Kunjabi Adi Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Brajacanaranjana Yashodanandana Brajacanaranjana Yamunatira Vanachadi Yamuna Tira Vanachadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Adi Madhava Kunjabi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Adi Jai Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivedagacharya Astatara Satasi Simad His Divine Grace Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Gaur Premanandi Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're back with Srimad Bhagavatam. This doesn't have the right marker. It's Canto 3, Chapter 3. What's the verse number? 10. Okay. Kalamagada Shavadin Anikai Rundata Puram Ajighanad Swayam Divyam Swapungsam Teja Adish Kalamagada Shavadin Anikai Rodata Puram Agighanat Swayam Divyam Swapungsam Teja Adishat Kalamagada Shalvadin Anikai Rundata Puram Jitanak Swayam Divyam Swapungsam Teja Adishat Kalamagada Shalvadin Ladies, please. Kalamagada Shalvadin Anikai Rodanta Param Kalyavana Magadha, the king of Magadha, Jarasandha, Shalva, King Shalva, Adin, and others, Anikai, by the soldiers, Rondataha, being encircled, Puram, the city of Mathura, Ajighanat, killed, Swayam, personally, Divyam, transcendental, Swapungsam, of his own men, Tejaha, prowess, Adishat, exhibited. Translation, Kalyavana, the king of Magadha and Shalva, attacked the city of Mathura. But when the city was encircled by their soldiers, the Lord refrained from killing them personally, just to show the power of his own men. Purport. After the death of Kamsa, when Mathura was encircled by the soldiers of Kalyavana, Jarasandha, and Shalva, The Lord seemingly fled from the city, and thus he is known as Ranchor, or one who fled from fighting. Actually, the fact was that the Lord wanted to kill them through the agency of his own men, devotees like Muchukunda and Bhima. Kalyavana and the king of Magadha were killed by Muchukunda and Bhima, respectively, who acted as agents of the Lord. By such acts, the Lord wanted to exhibit the prowess of his own devotees, as if he were personally unable to fight, but his devotees could kill them. The relationship of the Lord with his devotees is a very happy one. Actually, the Lord descended at the request of Brahma in order to kill the undesirables of the world. But to divide the share of glory, he sometimes engaged his devotees to take the credit. The battle of Kurukshetra was designed by the Lord himself, but just to give credit to his devotee Arjuna, Nimittamatram Bhava Savyasachin, he played the part of the charioteer, while Arjuna was given the chance to play the fighter and thus become the hero of the battle of Kurukshetra. What he wants to do himself by his transcendental plans, he executes through his confidential devotees. That is the way of the Lord's mercy towards his pure, unalloyed devotees. Did we read verse 9? Yes? Okay, verse 10. So 3 kings are mentioned: Kalyavana, Magadha, and Shalva. Now, the way the verse is written and the way that the purport is written, it's a little confusing to me, because Shalva wasn't present, to my knowledge. Shalva wasn't present when the Jarasandha and Kalyavana were attacking Mathura. In fact, Shalva was killed towards the very end of Krishna's pastimes in Dwarka. In any case, these are enemies of Krishna, and specifically at least Kalyavana and Jarasandha were killed by devotees of Krishna. And the meditation of Uddhava is the nature of Krishna's loving pastimes. Now, the nature of Krishna's loving pastimes is not only in Vrindavan, although we hear so much about Vrindavan, and Krishna's loving pastimes in Vrindavan. However, within Krishna is everything. There isn't, say the opposite, there isn't something that exists that's not within Krishna. Within Krishna is everything. And so there are varieties of everything. So then similarly, there are devotees of varieties of dispositions or relationships or loving exchanges with Krishna. And Krishna likes those loving exchanges. And he likes, it's one of his characteristics, he likes shining the spotlight on his devotee. He likes that his devotee is glorified. He likes that his devotee gets credit for doing something wonderful that's happening, in fact, because of Krishna's empowerment. Now, pure devotees know that. It's not me, it's Krishna, and I'm being used as an instrument of Krishna, and that's my happiness. The mixed devotees kind of struggle with wanting to take credit for something nice. And you name it, there's a tendency. I'm thinking because it's becoming Rath Yatra season for many places. And the first of the Rath Yatras was in San Francisco. It was quite spontaneous. Shyamasundar Prabhu, Prabhupada disciple Shyamasundar, was married to Malati. Malati and Shyamasundar were husband and wife. And one day, shopping at a pier import store, she found Jagannath deities. She didn't know who they were. She brought them to show them to Prabhupada in San Francisco. He paid us obeisances right there on the little Jagannath. And then he brought Shamsundar and said, "Could you make deities like this?" He'd never carved, but innovative and creative devotees did things that we never did before. And the first Rath Yatra. Now, she could take credit and he could take credit and Jayananda could take credit, but the character of a devotee is they don't take credit. It's something is being manifest by the agency of the pure devotee, and one gets to be the instrument. And so the agency of the pure devotee is the agency of Krishna. That is, behind everything is Krishna. It's chapter 10 Bhagavad Gita. Whatever is in this world that's wonderful, that's but a spark of Krishna's splendor. With but a spark of his splendor, he maintains and supports the entire universe. So the devotee's happiness is in the loving exchange, not the credit that one received for doing something, the power of which came from Krishna. The devotee is very cautious, reluctant, concerned, not to have something stick. And the answer is not just deny, oh, no, don't say those things. It's the credit goes to the all-merciful Krishna and the representatives of Krishna and so on. That's how a devotee thinks. Like, a nice example of this, when Canto 1, Chapter 7, Canto 1, when Arjuna returns from Dwarka, because Arjuna was sent to Dwarka by his elder brother Yudhishthira, find out what's going on with Krishna. Like, information is not a spy mission, but information gathering mission, because he couldn't just send a text message or something. So he went all the way from Hastinapur to Dwarka, and he came to know that Krishna had departed. And he then was given the assignment of marshaling the queens, protecting the queens, going all the way from Dwarka to be in Hastinapur under the care of Krishna's grandson. And on the way, there were some cowherd men that were harassing, and Arjuna, powerful Arjuna, was unable to repel them. The queens ended up being okay, but Arjuna was defeated. So he was like bewildered. Of course, certainly very, very sad that his dear friend Krishna had departed. So when he came back to report to Yudhishthira what happened, the queens had been safely put in the care of Krishna's grandson Mathura. And he went to Hastinapur to report to Yudhishthira. What happened? Krishna's gone. We're devastated. And his mind went over and over and over with the wonderful exchanges that they had, and marveling at the fact that the power to be victorious in the Kurukshetra battle was invested by Krishna. And when Krishna takes that power away, then I can't even protect the queens against coward men with their sticks. That's just one example. So a proper understanding of an ability to carry out some service is Krishna's giving the capacity to do that service, or not, or somewhere in between. And so we practice because we understand that which is desired by Krishna is something we should try to carry out, however imperfectly, and then practice and practice and practice and practice, and something that's meant for Krishna's pleasure, gradually the ability to do that something may manifest by Krishna's will. So in these two cases, Muchukunda was kind of blindsided. He didn't have a plan to do Krishna's bidding, but Krishna had the plan to glorify Muchukunda. Otherwise, we probably never would even have heard about Muchukunda. But he got a chance to do some very important service for Krishna without Krishna doing anything. And at the same time, Krishna then gave his darshan to Muchukunda. Then he revealed his identity to Muchukunda, who said many nice things. After he understood the person who was standing in the cave with him was the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But so he did some service of killing Kalyavana without any intention of doing to get some credit. It was just coincidentally opened his eyes and Kalyavana was cindered, pile of ashes. And Jarasandha wasn't killed at Mathura, but later Jarasandha was killed by Bhima. That's a whole other long, very fascinating explanation having to do with the Rajasuya sacrifice. I'll just narrate briefly. Krishna's in Dwarka, enjoying with the devotees. One messenger comes, informing Krishna that there's many kings imprisoned by Jarasandha, and he's the messenger on behalf of those kings who are his devotees. And the messenger said, they're requesting, please relieve us from our material circumstance. I mean, they wanted out of jail, but they didn't say we want, transcendental liberation. Take us out of our material circumstance. We're suffering too much. And at the same time, by divine arrangement, Narada Muni appears in Dwarka carrying a message from Yudhishthira. And from the message from Yudhishthira was, please come and participate in the Rajasuya sacrifice. Rajasuya sacrifice means it's a ritual by which one person is going to be declared as the emperor of the world, and other kings are subordinate to the emperor of the world. Then it's a sacrifice that has certain procedures. So he wanted Krishna to come. So Krishna turned to Uddhava. Which of these should I do first? And Uddhava understood, same point. Uddhava understood he's just giving me some service. He knows what to do. So give me the intelligence to say to him what he should do. And what he should do is, one thing will take care of both things. The one thing was go deal with Jarasandha, because for the Rajasuya sacrifice to take place, all opposing kings have to be annihilated or submit or be annihilated. And if you annihilate, he's not going to submit. And if you annihilate him, then the kings become out of jail, their material circumstances now relieved, and Yudhishthira can go ahead with the Rajasuya sacrifice. And then he made a plan of how to kill Jarasandha. It's, details and details. But the one that has strength to match Jarasandha's strength is Bhima. But you don't want to have the fight, there's like strategy. You don't want to have the fight in the city, so draw him out of the city. So others, innocent people, aren't harmed. And the way to do that is, go in the attire of Brahmanas, because Jarasandha is well known for being charitable to Brahmanas. So you ask for charity, and then you ask for a fight, and Bhima should be the one to fight him, and Bhima can destroy him. Because in Krishna's presence, Bhima will be victorious. And sure enough, that's what happened. There's many things happened, but Bhima is the one that destroyed Jarasandha by Krishna's empowerment. And Kalyavana was destroyed by Muchukunda by Krishna's empowerment. Because ultimately the power for fire to come from his eyes when people disturbed him was given by the demigods, but where do the demigods get their powers? So Kalyavana was killed by the agency of Muchukunda, by Krishna's empowerment, because he likes his devotees being praised for things that he's doing. He likes. And that's the main message. And it's a part of Krishna's nature. He likes it more when his devotees are honored than when he's honored. There's many examples of this. The other example given in the purport is the obvious one. Arjuna was honored because of the heroism that he exhibited during the Kurukshetra battle. But not only the heroism that he exhibited, Arjuna submitted himself to Krishna's will. And because he submitted himself to Krishna's will, he's honored. And then once he is honored, once he's submitting to Krishna's will, then he can do whatever Krishna is wanting. The first, nimitta matram, bhava, savyasachin. Oh, Savyasachi, become my instrument. And so the principle is the same for us. Now, we're not likely to be called upon to kill Kalyavana or Jarasandha or win the battle of Kurukshetra, but we're likely to be called upon to do some service that may be, from our perspective, like overhead or beyond our capacity to do. So it's good to recognize something is beyond my capacity to do, and then to do it. And then to do it means with the understanding that Krishna will help you do it. Because just like Shamsundar carving Jagannath, he never carved anything. He's just a creative person. So Prabhupada empowered him. He carved Jagannath, really tall, very large deities. Jayananda had never built a Rath Yatra cart, and he was assigned to build the cart. And what a wonderful cart, 3 carts, with no budget. He was famous for not spending money. Everything was donated. And why did people donate? Because he was such a genuine person. All the wood, all of this and that and the other thing, and the skill and the nuts and the bolts and the hardware just was donated. Little story. After the first New York Rath Yatra, Jayananda stayed on. Prabhupada was there for the first Rath Yatra. Jayananda stayed on, and he took on the service of going to a what do you call it? A several-day event. There's some name for these things, where people set up their wares and they sell stuff, and it's like a state fair kind of thing. And so we had a booth, and it was a prasadam booth, and he went to do that. But he didn't have proper pair of pants, so he went to a store and was caught shoplifting. I remember it well. Krishna said, "Jayananda, why'd you do this? Pair of pants." I said, "Just can't spend money. Just can't spend money." Because even way back then, they had this barcode, and you take something out of the building without scanning the barcode, and an alarm goes off. Catch thieves. He paid a little fine and got reprimanded and bought the pants. Anyway, that's sidebar. One can become empowered, and Krishna likes that. And when you don't have the capacity to do it anyways, it can be intimidating, and whatever are the other words, emotional words that people use these days. On the other hand, if it's done, even there may be some stress and some anxiety and some uncertainty and all those other things, still it can happen. Just like constructing this temple. I mean, it's a lot of money. And somehow it's going to happen. Somehow. And that's how Prabhupada moved the Hare Krishna movement forward. Somehow. He considered practical matters, but at the same time he also relied on Krishna's capacity to do things when the purpose was his pleasure. Krishna enabling his devotees to do things. Okay, let's see if there's some discussion. The morning after Ram Navami.
There are 2 online wishes.
Okay, let's see if there's something in the room first.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. You mentioned about Krishna's empowerment to Arjuna and a few others. In our case, although Krishna is with us, Krishna is with us.
Krishna is with us.
In our heart and as a super soul.
In our heart, yeah.
Is there any indication, like, how do we know that, okay, if I'm doing something and then he's empowering me? Sometimes I have a lot of fear in doing some services and stuff like that. Is there any, because we are not yet there yet, right? So
because we want to do what?
Because we are not there yet.
Not there yet.
Is there any indication that...
How do you bridge the gap between knowing and not being there yet?
Yes.
Cross your fingers. It's practice, and it's advisable to take steps. There was a nice discussion somebody wanted to discuss. Hemangi wanted to discuss. Sometimes it's advisable to take quantum steps. And how do we know when it's time to take quantum steps? Though that's the exception. It depends on the circumstance. And the circumstance may be, the criterion is some particular instruction from an authority, and you just carry out the instruction with faith that it's meant to happen, and somehow it'll happen, provided I don't get my mind and material baggage in the way. And that's likely to happen because we have baggage, and we have minds that get in the way. So therefore, the incremental step is better. And when you're doing the incremental, so Let it be known that there's something that's to be done, is descending something to be done. I gave this little example to one of the children that was learning Bhagavad Gita sloka. Prabhupada moved the Hare Krishna movement forward on the strength of giving instructions. And when he gave instructions, it was sometimes seen as like, how is this going to happen? A very simple example, I mentioned it. There was a period of time when there were 4 main temples distributing Prabhupada's Back to Godhead magazine, then a monthly magazine. Los Angeles, New York, Boston, and Montreal. And it was the monthly order was with the printer was 25,000 copies, divided through 4 temples. And after we did it, Prabhupada said, very good, now the next month is going to be 50,000. So like double it. And they had to be distributed. They got distributed, but how was it going to be possible? And the order of the spiritual master was the plans and execution of plans, but the order of the spiritual master was behind it. When the thought was, how is this going to be possible? Another classic example is the printing of Chaitanya Charitamrita in such a short period of time. That's extraordinary, but it was the order of the spiritual master, and so it happened. Because it was the order of the spiritual master. People had faith, and they, round the clock practically, in order to fulfill the order of the spiritual master. So when there's something that's clearly directed, and you may feel, any one of us may feel, beyond my capacity, then you tighten your belt and you go forward anyways, because it's an instruction to do so. And even if it doesn't come out as you might want it to come out, because various reasons, time and capacity and skill and so forth, there's the faith. And those that are faithful, like a nice example, Shamsudra carving Jagannath deities. They were fantastic. They're still being worshipped, those deities that he carved. And then, he never carved, and nobody even knew who Jagannath was. But Prabhupada. So when you have a clear idea that this is something that Guru and or Krishna want, then you do it to your capacity. And even if it's less than perfect, it's the devotion with which something is being done. That's what's pleasing. And along with that devotion, some empowerment to do. And that's our life. So what your question is, how do you handle those situations when your capacity is small and the task ahead of you is much bigger than the small? So steps, and even when you do steps, it's more than what you've been doing, and so it's dependence upon Krishna, and leaving aside egoistic considerations that I'm the doer, etc. It requires taking up the consciousness of I'm an instrument. So Krishna, please use me as your instrument. Okay.
Guru Maharaj, the Jayananda Prabhu that you mentioned is the same.
Is there any what?
Jayananda Prabhu that you mentioned is the
Jayananda.
Yeah, is the same who is in deity ministry now.
Same what?
Is the same Jayananda Prabhu who is in deity ministry?
No,
with Narasimha Kaviraj
definitely
Prabhu?
not.
Okay.
Definitely not.
Okay.
Prabhupada disciple, Jayananda, he died of leukemia. And Prabhupada had his departure date placed on our Vaishnava calendar. It's a different one.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I I have this quote that Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj actually wrote about empowerment that I used to refer periodically. And I have a question also. Is, when your desire to serve is beyond your capacity, yet you act without hesitation, that is the moment empowerment occurs.
That's nice.
Yeah. It's
It's,
really.
empowerment can happen even if if you don't you go forward with full confidence, just to be able to walk across the floor. There's empowerment. Go ahead.
So specifically, I've been thinking about desire and deserve part, because there are some spiritual desires that I feel is definitely beyond my deserve at this point. But at the same time, these desires are there, and the way I was dealing with them is just keep the desires, and as one matures, and when there is the time and some level of comfort even in expressing those desires, until then I just wait and not just jump into the desire.
Yes.
But at the same time, certain desires are in a way that I don't feel whether I would deserve any day, and it's too far.
But prepare yourself. Even the Vaishnav humility is a factor. At the same time, preparing is another factor. And that is to say, Krishna may bestow his mercy, or Krishna may not bestow his mercy. But it doesn't take the desire away. It doesn't mean you tuck it under the rug or something. So for the Vaishnava that's humble and feeling I'm not qualified, it's like Rupa Goswami's Asha Bandha message. And what he has an Asha for is very high. But I'm not qualified. But although I'm not qualified, I still have that desire. Hope against hope, Asha Bandha. But that's profound spiritual desire. And we're not so qualified for profound anything. In other words, we need strong sadhana to get to the place where a spiritual desire becomes stronger than just a practice. That's the deserve part. Factoring in by natural, appropriate Vaishnava humility. That's that's a general statement. There are persons who have spiritual inclination that's just natural and abundant. Some persons are like that. Most of the rest of us aren't like that. And so then it's just sadhana for how many lifetimes or however long to get back to the deserve. And that's Bhaktisiddhanta's teaching, and there's a reason for it. First deserve. Doesn't mean desire gets trashed. It just means that's not in the foreground. I know some people where the desire is in the foreground and the deserve is in the background. Or it's not even on the table. And that's not good. They are frustrated people. Not like what's wrong with me, but what's wrong with Krishna. Something else? Yes.
This question is how to process.
This is your question.
My question. Okay. And how to overcome the fear that something good I do will be taken away by others in power and strength.
How to overcome the fear that something that I have the assignment to do and the capacity to do, it's going to be taken away by others. There's a fear. Okay, then you, if you're not Krishna conscious, then you just live in fear. And if you're Krishna conscious, then if Krishna wants to take something, he can sanction something be taken. If Krishna doesn't want something to be taken, no one can take it. So it's dependence upon Krishna as the solution to fear. And one isn't dependent upon Krishna, then one lives in fear. Not only that, anything. So many types of fear or causes of fear. Anything else? Or go online. There's some.
How do I see when others are taking away things?
How do you see? With folded palms. That's how you see. That something can't happen without Krishna's sanction. If something happens apparently without Krishna's sanction, Krishna will correct it. So Krishna's my protector. Krishna's our protector. If someone wants to be a thief, that taking away something that's not sanctioned by Krishna to take away, then Krishna will take. That's Krishna's department. He'll take care of that situation. No worries. It may not be immediately that someone gets caught in a bear trap or something like that, but Krishna will take care of it behind you.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. I just want clarification on this topic of empowerment.
Okay. That is the topic for this morning's verse.
Yeah. So I do seem to have like this lack of self-confidence. So whenever the service comes, they always all seem beyond my capacity. But from what you're saying today, this important factor is this faith
Yes.
in the instructions that's been given.
And who behind the instruction that's given is Krishna, because the instruction, transcendentally, is a descending instruction. So behind everything is Krishna.
And then also,
So you're not alone.
And then also I try to remember this verse in Bhagavad Gita where Krishna promises that he will carry.
He comes as what?
He will carry what we lack.
Yes. Important verse.
Yeah.
Yep. Now, that's the concept, or that's the philosophy, and then comes life. And they don't always match, experientially. So then we have to cultivate. That's sadhana practice. The life of cultivation of Krishna consciousness. We shall go from fear to fearlessness. And fearlessness doesn't mean foolish. Fearlessness means fearlessness. Because Krishna is by my side. And without Krishna by my side, there's reason to be fearful. A dangerous place. Okay?
I have one more.
Sure.
This fear, being fearful, I find that, senior Vaishnavas are very kind and compassionate.
But?
And they extend their friendship. But the fear I have that, this familiarity breeds contempt, where I'm always fearful of making offenses.
Good. Don't make offenses. But, being catatonic because I'm fearful, that's not good. Avoid offenses doesn't mean frozen. That's intelligence. You move forward knowing that you get in your car to drive home. And there's a possibility that there could be an accident, but you drive your car to get home. Knowing that there's there's risk. So you drive carefully and you drive home. And ultimately, if Krishna protects me, nothing can harm me. And if Krishna doesn't protect me, nothing can protect me. Right? That's the Krishna conscious perspective on fearfulness. Bhayam Datriyam, it's a nice verse. You know the verse. Bhayam Datriyam Avidiveshi Taksyat. Fear arises when one has absorption in the temporary. So what about the absorption in the temporary? Look beyond the temporary, what's behind the temporary. That's Krishna, that's knowledge and faith that Krishna is there. Although I may not see him with my material senses, I know, and then in mature stage I feel Krishna's presence. So that doesn't mean I'm foolish, do foolish things because Krishna will take care of my foolishness. We don't do foolish things, but we have faith. Krishna is there, supervising, protecting. Okay, online.
This is from Rajat Garg Prabhu. Rajat Garg.
Okay, yeah.
He has two-part question, Maharaj. The first one is this understanding correct? That Krishna's internal potency acts in its full potency only when we clearly understand that we are the instruments in the hands of Krishna.
Well, it's like the sun shines with full brightness, whether there's clouds in the sky or not. And then there's different kinds of clouds that may be in the sky. But the sun shines brightly. Always. So what our experience is of the sun shining brightly may be variegated, but the sun shines brightly. So the internal potency is acting, and we may be connecting more or less with that internal potency, depending upon our conceptions and our faith and our mature stage of bhakti, etc.
And the second part is that realization is achieved realistically.
What?
Realistically.
Realization achieved realistically.
Only after substantial purification and right disposition of the heart.
Sure. Sure. I mean, Krishna can bestow anything he wants, but that's generally the rule.
The other question is Sri Vallabh Prabhu. How do we understand why Krishna created the optics of being cowardly in his battles with Jarasandha, specifically in his 18th battle?
Specifically relating to
18th, last.
the 18th, specifically in the 18th battle. So how do we understand what's the first part?
Why Krishna created the optics of being cowardly.
The optics,
Yeah.
the appearance
Yeah.
of being
Covered.
covered. Being covered?
Covered.
Coward? A coward.
Yeah.
A coward. He was having fun. He didn't want to kill Jarasandha. There were two things, at least two things. It was time to marry Rukmini. That's what our acharyas say. So he wanted to hurry up and get to where he could be in being married to Rukmini, because the time was running out because of what was going on over in Bhishmaka's kingdom. And the other was he wanted, as we just read, Krishna wanted to give the privilege to Bhima to kill Jarasandha instead of doing it himself. No, he could have just done what he did the other 17 times. Send him back home. But anyway, he did what he did.
The next one is from Amrit Keli Mataji.
What, from whom?
Amrit Keli Mataji.
Okay.
So when we hear these statements like, whatever we are able to do is because of Guru and Krishna's empowerment, sometimes we take it too far saying, I will do it only when Krishna inspires or enables me, as if there is nothing from our side. I tend to even give up the endeavor saying that Krishna is not empowering me, so maybe I am not meant to do this.
Well, there are circumstances where we're not meant to do something. So now what do you do when there are circumstances you're not meant to do something? You pause out and you reflect, you inquire from authorities, and then you move forward or pause out or just back out. So we look to higher authorities for verification on our introspections. Anything else? Srila Prabhupada ki jai.